Mr. President.
Senator from Connecticut.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm proud to join my colleagues tonight because this nation stands at a precipice, on the verge of a tragic mistake, about to embark on a travesty that mocks the democratic process. Truly, the combination of secrecy and speed are a toxic recipe in our democracy. Secrecy and speed will bring us recklessly over the edge of that precipice to tragic mistakes that belie and betray the people of America and the values that we all share in this chamber, because they are basic to the American way of life. And health care is a right. It should be recognized as a right. And the goal of extensive and comprehensive insurance coverage has to be ultimately a goal that we share in common. But right now, we are speeding secretly toward a betrayal of American values and constitutional duties. I'm deeply disappointed that the secrecy employed by my colleagues has brought us recklessly and reprehensibly to the verge of gutting the Affordable Care Act. The absence of hearings before the committee, the absence of public debate, the absence of any text of a bill that can be debated and offered for public comment leaves us without a democratic bedrock principle of listening to the people of America and listening to the people who are most effective, who know the most, the experts, and the patients. In fact, it is the patients who deserve to be heard here, perhaps most of all. And yet, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle seemingly will go to any length to suppress the cruelty that lies in their alleged health care bill. President Trump has called it mean, and that is an understatement. It is cruel beyond words and costly in lives and in dollars and cents, because it will deepen and worsen healthcare issues that can be prevented and made curable or more palatable. Let's be clear. This secrecy, a small group of men making decisions about our entire healthcare system with no input from women, from Medicaid beneficiaries, from people with substance use disorders, from patients struggling with mental health illness, with any disease at all, is irresponsible and deadly, truly cruel and costly to our democracy. The way these discussions have been done are a stain on this body and a slap in the face to every American that relies on us to make decisions that are in the best interests of their family as well as themselves. My colleagues seemingly would prefer to ram and rush a deeply flawed and unpopular bill through this body, ignoring the needs and will of the people they represent. That is a sad day in this chamber. We need public hearings, not for their own sake, not for our sake, but for the individual recovering from substance use disorder, thanks to Medicaid, for the mother of a little girl with a pre-existing condition, terrified of how she'll pay for her care and able to do so now because of the Affordable Care Act, the woman who is at a Planned Parenthood clinic today receiving mammogram and other cancer screenings and other preventive health care testing, as well as men, because of the coverage provided to them by Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Defunding Planned Parenthood, risking, again, pre-existing conditions, eliminating the guarantee of essential health benefits like maternity care is a war on women's health care and a disservice to our democracy done in secrecy. My colleagues across the aisle may succeed in gutting our nation's health care system, but the people who pay the highest price will be ordinary Americans, working men and women and their families, who now have health care coverage to prevent more serious illness and who will now go without it. Secrecy is the reason that I convened an emergency field hearing on health care today in Connecticut on very short notice, literally 24, 48 hours. People came from across Connecticut. At 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, my staff did yeoman's work putting together the logistics, and the outpouring of anxiety and anger was remarkable. The eloquence and power of the insights offered by people about their own situations as well as about others whose interests they advocate. Many decided to stay and stand, even though the room afforded inadequate numbers of seats for everyone. There was standing room open. And they literally streamed out the door. The stories they told are worth hearing, and we have an obligation to listen to these Americans. I told them that I would personally bring their voices and their faces to this chamber, to the floor of the United States Senate, and in the coming days, that's exactly what I will do. Because people need to hear the story of Justice, a beautiful young woman who now is incapacitated because she suffered from an overdose after seeking treatment, and the effect on others similarly seeking treatment will be so dire and damaging if coverage for addiction treatment and abuse treatment is eliminated. They need to hear the story of Sean, who similarly sought to overcome a substance abuse problem. They need to hear about individuals who would suffer from pre-existing conditions. Those stories are what I will be recounting in the coming days as I share word for word their fears, their anxiety and apprehension, and their worry for America about what will happen if the Affordable Care Act is repealed and gutted. We must build on that act. We must improve its defects and make sure that it is worthy of the great goals that we share, but not destroy it or decimate it. And building on it, acting constructively, coming together is what we owe the American people. The folks who came today to the state capitol in Hartford at my emergency health care hearing recognize that if they fail to stand up for Planned Parenthood or mental health or those people with pre-existing conditions or Medicaid or their loved one who is battling a dreadful disease, no one will. I am so proud of them and the people of Connecticut who have spoken up and stood up for the Affordable Care Act. And I'm proud to bring their voices here to the United States Senate, literally bring their voices here, as I will do over coming days, as I read into the record and put in the record their testimony. And as I hold a second hearing, probably later this week, because we couldn't hear from everyone who came to speak out and stand up. I hope that my Republican colleagues will stop their denial, cease ignoring and disregarding those voices, and come to listen to them instead, and recognize that they cannot conceal the fact that the Affordable Care Act has helped our nation's health. Gutting it without any hearings or public debate is unconscionable and reprehensible. It is a move they will regret. I stand ready to build on the great strides made by the Affordable Care Act, and I hope my colleagues are ready to do the same. But if this chamber proceeds down this reckless and reprehensible path of secrecy and speed toward repeal and gutting the Affordable Care Act, I promise to do everything in my power and use every tool at our disposal to stop this process. We cannot go about normal business in the United States Senate while so many back in our states demand that we fight, and we must fight. I will stand with hundreds of thousands in Connecticut who will lose their insurance, more than 220,000. I will stand with the people of Connecticut who will lose billions of dollars in investment in health care. I will stand with more than 20,000 people in Connecticut and 1 million around the country who will lose jobs. According to a study recently done by the Commonwealth Fund, job losses are inevitably the result at some point in the future of gutting this program. And I will stand with the people of America and my colleagues who will resist, indeed resist, this secrecy and speed that so deserves the values and betrays the ethos and traditions of this body. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.